Hangeul Day is October 9th. So this year for Hangeul Day, I thought I would share a few of my experiences with learning it, some advantages, and a few tips for getting it to stick. If you don't know me, I'm Becca, and I've been living in Korea for just a little bit over a year now. And while this is primarily still a knitting channel, I also like to share a few things about wherever in the world it is that I'm living. Aside from the obvious fact that it's not ideal to be illiterate, I've found a few extra perks that I think you should get excited about too. Konglish refers to English words that have been converted into Korean. Now, this is good news because when I first started learning to read Hangeul, I was afraid that it would never do me any good because I didn't understand what the words meant that I was learning how to sound out. But then when I got here, I was surprised how many words turned out to actually be English. This epiphany occurred, of course, in the grocery store where I spend a lot of time. I used to go and roam the aisles and I would stare at all of the labels and I would stare and stare and stare until I finally got a word sounded out, and then I would kind of say it quietly to myself, probably like a huge creep, until all of a sudden this light bulb would go off and I'd be like, oh my God, I know what that is. Caramel macchiato. Caramel macchiato. Oh my God. And I would get so excited like a huge dork, and I think everyone at that store thinks I'm a weirdo. So check out these iced coffee drinks that I got at 7-Eleven. A lot of things will also have the English words for the same thing under them, but not all of them. For example, this. It says 7 Select and designed by, but everything else is Korean. Chocolate. Probably tastes about like chocolate milk. And then this one here says Cuppy Cookie Latte, which I'm kind of excited to taste that. Let's take a look. It's usually good to shake it first. That's good. It tastes like Biscoff cookie. All right. Number 2, I think that learning to read Hangeul will help you in understanding the pronunciation once you start learning how to speak it. Now, Korea is very kind in the fact that they have Romanized pretty much all of the street sign names. So if you're driving around in the country, you'll see signs on the road with Korean, and then underneath it is the Romanization of the Korean word, which is where they have taken each character in Korean and given it a standard English alphabet equivalent. Spanish, French, whatever, they're all the same. Because they know that no other country in the world uses this alphabet system, and they want to make it more accessible for foreigners like me. Thank you, Korea. I really appreciate it. But some of the Romanized letters are more problematic than others. I think the chief offender is the vowel that's a straight line with a little stick pointing off to the left, my left, here for you. It is Romanized as EO, which most Americans at first tend to pronounce like AO or AO or O or something like that, when in reality it's closer to being somewhere in between A and A. The third perk that I thought was pretty exciting was it will actually improve your vocabulary. Now, if you've ever taught a child to read or just spent time with a child while they're learning to read, it's a really exciting time because all of a sudden, all of these things are clicking into place as they're making all of these connections between what they're seeing and what they've been hearing. And they all of a sudden have this huge language explosion because they're like, oh my God, I know what that says. I know what that says. Ooh, what does this say? Well, even as an adult, when you learn a new alphabet system, suddenly you'll start looking around and words will pop out at you that before used to just look like some weird shapes, and it's pretty exciting. You'll start to see the same words or parts of words over and over again, and pretty soon, thanks to associative reasoning in this good old brain of yours, you'll start to kind of understand what they mean. Which brings me to my favorite example, which I like to call the gochu connection. The first place I ever heard the word gochu was in gochujang. Now, gochujang is something that I already kept in my refrigerator before finding out we were coming to Korea because it's really good. It's spicy, but it has a delicious flavor, and if you add just a little bit to sauces or marinades, it's amazing. So one day here in Korea, I was trying a new recipe that I had found, and it called for gochushil and gochugaru. In the recipe, it explained that gochushil is hot red pepper threads and gochugaru is red pepper powder. I'm sure you also could figure out from that gochu is this, a hot red pepper. This one was grown right here in Korea by one of our lovely neighbors. So then, once you know what gochu means, you can start to figure out what the other words that are added to the end of it are. So gochujang, red pepper paste, so you could assume that chang means paste. I have since also found miso paste, which is miso doenjang, this, and samjang, which the word is not large on this package. I'm not going to struggle through finding it right now, but this is samjang. Also a different sort of a flavor, but I have learned to like it. Please forgive me if I'm not getting this quite right. I'm still learning the language, but I think it would be safe to say at this point that jang at the end of a word like that means paste or sauce. Then we have gochushil, which looks like this. And shil means thread. I couldn't find it just now, but I have some yarn that came from Korea that's called tuge-shil, which actually means knitting thread. So I thought that was pretty funny. Sometimes though, shil at the end of a word can mean room. So like with every language, annoyingly, there's a lot that has to be figured out based on context. Next is gochugaru. Garu, that's still hard for me to say. Right here, gochugaru, which is the red pepper powder. I also started to notice this word garu at the end of other things in the grocery store, like this kimgaru, seaweed flakes, basically, and buchimgaru, which is a flour that you can use to make Korean pancakes, which are very delicious. So I think, again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but garu refers to a flour or something that has been ground up or is in really small pieces, I think. In my other Hangeul Day blog post, I talked a little bit how I started learning and how it wasn't the best. It wasn't the best situation. But what I think would get you started the best would be to get a Korean alphabet chart, some workbooks so that you can practice writing, and then just look up a bunch of videos so you can hear how everything is pronounced. There are a lot on YouTube. Add a Korean language keyboard to your phone. This might seem a little bit silly, but I first started typing Korean words manually into the Translate apps because it was getting really embarrassing constantly holding up my phone to everything in the store and trying to translate what it meant with the visual translate feature. And it's funny though, because what started out as vanity and pride ended up being really helpful, because as I started typing the words in, I was able to see how the letters fit together and kind of change their size and positioning based on the syllable that they were in. And it also helped me to kind of remember the words because I was thinking about it a lot more than when you just shine your phone at it and take a picture. My favorite way though is to look up a traditional Korean recipe that sounds good to me and add all of the unfamiliar ingredients to my list in Korean. And that way when I go to the store, it's more like a scavenger hunt than a chore. My two favorite bloggers that I get recipes from are Kimchi Mari and Korean Bapsang. I'll add their links down below. I love them because they're really great at explaining the history and tradition behind the dishes, as well as a little bit about the ingredients that Americans might not be so familiar with. Well, are you excited yet? If you had an aha moment, or if you know more than I do and you have some other tips to help people out, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Thanks for watching. Bye.